Hello, and welcome back to the Dr. Toomer Talk Show. I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer. I'm a family medicine and hormonal and metabolic weight care specialist, and I'm also the founder of Total Weight Care Institute. And since we last spoke, I think maybe since last spoke, launched, I'm also the founder of Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Group. And what Your Light Wellness and Weight Care Group is a group of physicians who are virtual weight care specialists who provide access, ready access, and affordable and safe access to compounded GLP-1 medications, as well as we advocate for our patients and we also accept patients that are often cut out from the normal criteria for weight care just simply because of the antiquated criteria. But I'm not going to get into that too much today. I'll talk about that more another time. But if you're here, please say hello and Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you, Marsha. Thank you for coming from Barbados. Let me know where you're listening from. And um, and so I'm just excited to be back. And if you listen to this later, you can put in your name or see your name, put in hashtag replay and let me know where you're listening from. It's always nice to know how far we reach. So again, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, and I am going to talk today about the often ignored reasons that we gain weight in the wintertime. Now, of course, not all parts of the world are winter. Are cold during the winter. We all have different seasons. But here in the United States, where I am right now, is basically we're in cold weather primarily. Now, and before I get answered, Marcia, did I have a good holiday? I did absolutely. I enjoyed my time with my family and quite a few friends. Um, and Hold on just a moment. I need to remove a comment because somebody's being rude for some reason. Um, oh goodness, what is that? Hold on just a moment. Unfortunately, it seems I've attracted a troll. So yeah, that's gone. Um, Hold on just a moment. For some reason this person is decided to troll me today. Well, I guess that's always said. I don't get trolls. They say that the larger you get, the more negativity you also attract. So apparently, I seem to have gotten someone from LinkedIn, but so be it. Um, Hello, Happy New Year to you, Lindy, and happy Happy New Year, Linda from Michigan. Okay, Happy New Year, and thank you for coming. So, what I wanted to talk about was some of the reasons that we tend to put on weight during the holidays, and not so much the holidays, but during the winter. Now, it's not so much that weight gain is an issue, and I've always said this over and over again. Our weight is what it is, and how we accept ourselves is what it is. However, what happens though is our weight is an indication of something else happening, whether it's going up or coming down. And that something else could be positive or it could not be. And so it's important that when we pay attention, we don't pay attention to the weight itself, but what the cause of the weight is. And so sometimes the cause of that weight is the reason that we have to pay attention. And we can sometimes it's something we can just ignore, and sometimes it isn't. But it's always good to at least pay attention so that we know if something's going on that we need to address. And so in the wintertime, often what happens, our weight starts to creep up. And sometimes that happens because we're just not paying attention, or sometimes it happens because something's going on underlying. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about why that can happen. Um, so one of the things that happens in the wintertime, particularly when it's cold, is we tend to reduce our activity, mainly because we don't get out as much. We tend not to move around as much. It gets darker earlier, and so we tend to, stay in. And our activity does make a difference, particularly after eating. So if you move even for about 10 minutes or so after you've eaten a meal, it really does change how that meal is processed, whether it becomes fuel or whether it gets converted to fat. And so often in the wintertime, what happens, we eat earlier, or we tend to stop moving around as early, or we start moving around earlier, I should say. And so what happens is that we're more sedentary, and so we don't burn as many calories. We're not, um, we just don't do as much. And um, and this is often, also weather does play a huge role in this. The second reason is we tend to eat more in the wintertime. And partly because of it is holidays. I mean, that tend to Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all those tend to fall in the wintertime or colder months. And that's, to be expected. However, there's also an evolutionary reason for this. And part of it is that we tend to eat more. We tend to eat more in the wintertime simply because our body's trying to lay down insulation. And so our appetite tends to go up, our metabolism tends to go down, and our body gets shifts to become more efficient at making fat. And so what happens is that we tend to put down a layer of insulation, and therefore, um, um, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, we put down because I'm having like several things going on in my head at once. But anyway, we put down a layer of insulation, and that's not unusual. Um, but and then I'll talk little bit later about how we can counter this. The third reason is seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, which is an interesting um, acronym for it. So, seasonal affective disorder essentially is like a low level depression that occurs because during the winter time, and mainly it's because of our low exposure to sunlight and just the length of time that it's dark outside. So, what happens is we get this mild depression, which affects our hormones, and it also affects our cravings and appetite because of it affects our hormones, primarily cortisol. But this decrease in or the increase in depression also lends itself to decrease in motivation, and those are things like that want you to get up and move, or you want you to eat properly, or that wants you to take better care of yourself. When you're depressed, we tend to give up self care first. And so when you have seasonal affective disorder, um, that's what that those are things that can happen. And it doesn't mean it's some failing on your part. It just simply is a biological thing that happens because we don't get exposed to sunlight. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about how that could be countered a little later because how it can be countered can be for all of this. There's other metabolic and hormonal things that go changes that happen during the wintertime. Um, One, our metabolism slows, like I mentioned earlier, partly because our body wants to put on extra fat as insulation to keep us warm. Even though we have clothing now, there was a time when our body, those who survived were those who were able to make fat the easiest out of the food they ate. Um, but also, what happens is our hormonal levels change, like melatonin, like our cortisol, all the things that affect our alertness, our metabolism, and how what our body does and how it processes the food we eat. And so again, it's just something that happens during the wintertime. We also get less vitamin D during the winter because we're not in the sun as much. And so it's always a good idea for immunity and for any other reasons to take extra vitamin D because vitamin D helps ward off viruses. And of course, wintertime is also a viral month. So, it's always good to supplement with those. And then the last is clothing. We tend to wear heavier clothing when we are in the winter. So when we wear heavier clothing in the winter, we tend not to pay as much attention to the cues that tell us that we're gaining weight. Now, and it's not even so much that, like I said, gaining weight in and of itself is not the issue. It's just that it tells you there's something else going on. And so that something else that's going on may be something that you need to pay attention to. And so when we wear heavier clothes, we wear clothes that keep us warm and big sweaters and all the rest, we tend not to notice the telltale signs of weight gain or of body changing, and the things that kind of trigger us into modifying our behavior, maintaining certain habits that we normally would during the rest of the year. But how do we counter this? So one of the ways we counter anything is you always plan, have a strategy, recognize it for what it is, understand this is something that can happen, and have a plan for it. And one way to do that is to just get in the habit of moving around more in the evenings, especially after it gets dark. Even if it's just walking around, putting on some music, dancing, doing a yoga class on YouTube inside the house, having an activity that you can do that you move in the house. So not don't you're not always dependent. If you're always dependent on an activity that requires you to be outside or requires you to be in the gym or requires a lot of steps, if you're not able to take care of those steps, then all of a sudden it falls away. So the more things you can do at home and the more things that you can comfortably do at home, even if it's not exactly like you did before, if it's just something, it's still better than doing nothing. The other is getting a sun lamp. Now, sun lamps are a special type of lamp that provide your body with the same benefits of sunlight, but without the negative parts of sunlight. So, in other words, you don't get the UV radiation that causes skin cancer, but you do get the benefit of your body producing vitamin D. And that sunlight and just kind of tricking your brain into thinking you have more sunlight than what you've gotten can help. Now, there's different ways of doing this. And often you can talk to your physician, your primary care doctor, or it also has instructions with the lamp. And usually it's just you sit in the lamp for about an hour a day, and that will counter. Now, the key is don't do it too close to bedtime. If you do it in the morning, that often helps through the rest of the day, but also doing it at the time that the sun goes down so that you extend the amount of sunlight that your body's exposed to. And it can just be you sitting watching TV, doing something else, but just having that light nearby so it shines on you and your body gets the benefit. But and then the other, like I said, anticipate a plan, have a plan, anticipate this changing, and then have indoor activities. Create routines around indoor activities because otherwise, if you depend on being outside, particularly like now, there's a snowstorm going on in the Northeast. What are you going to do? I mean, you can bundle up and take a walk around the block. It's not always safe. It's not, especially in places where there could be ice or where the temperatures are below freezing. So you just want to have a plan for what you can do indoors on a daily basis so that it counters some of the lethargy and the sedentariness and the extra food intake that we encounter during this time of year. So thank you all for joining. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Aunt Cynthia. Thank you, Juana, for coming. And if you have questions, now would be the time to ask them. You can post them in the chat. And I'm trying to think if there's um, well, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Or what I'm going to do is put my email in the chat so that way, if you have questions later, you can write to me. Yeah. So Marcia said, I always have sunshine here in Barbados, but during the nights it gets a little chilled around December. And that's fine. That's one of the benefits of living in a tropical place is that you don't have the same issues that a lot of people do. Now the sunlight can, sometimes it gets dark earlier, but you also get more benefit of the sun during the day. The key is still the same. If you start noticing a creeping up of your weight, that means something else is happening. You're probably not moving around as much or eating differently because and so it's always important just to pay attention. And so in the evenings, if you, like you said, it still doesn't change. You can do activities at home. You can do things that are movement related, and so that you get the benefits of those things daily. Cynthia says you continue to be a blessing. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate you being here. So if you have questions, You can ask me those questions in the chat. You can write to my email and send me questions there if you'd like, or you can just show up next Tuesday, every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern live, and I'll be here to share information and to answer your questions as you present them. So again, I'm Dr. Catherine Toomer, and just so you know, there is if you go to my mostly on Facebook, I guess. But what I'm going to do in the future, and I realized I forgot to do this today, is I'm going to put in a link that will allow you to sign up as patients to become priority patients for your light wellness and weight care. So if you give me just a moment, I'm actually going to pull it up and put it in the chat. And then that way you can capture that link. And so what this is a patient interest. And if you fill out this form, I will connect you to one of our physicians who is a weight health specialist who will help you get the medications you need. I'm getting emails and I'm getting lots of messages from people who are telling me they're losing access to their GLP-1 medication and they are losing the benefits of that. And I'm trying really hard to make sure that we have a way to take care of this. So I'm putting the link in the chat. You can copy this link, save it, and then use it or share it with friends and family. Anyone who you feel might need a affordable way of getting their GLP-1 medications safe and effective and quickly, and mail order is right to you, and by physicians who know what they're doing. So, and you see the same physician every time. It's not like you're going to be jumping around and going into a website and you never know who you're going to see. It's always going to be the same doctor each time. So Whisper Tulip, oh, I love that name. What is the best way to throw away belly fat in your 60s, or is it too late? It is absolutely not too late. So, well, it depends on the cause of the belly fat. So belly fat can be caused by a couple of reasons. Cortisol, unopposed cortisol because of menopause. So what menopause does, it drops our estrogen, cortisol becomes unopposed. Unopposed cortisol pushes our body towards insulin resistance and we grow belly fat. So the way to resist that, to get that, is to counter the metabolic issue that's causing it. So hormone replacement so that cortisol is no longer unopposed, and then muscle to counter the cortisol, and stress reduction by daily activity. Excuse me. Daily activity, either yoga breathing, if it's therapy that's required, whatever it takes to get your cortisol levels down. Now, GLP-1 medications can work for some people if their metabolic cause is also genetically a component, and if your BMI is over a certain amount. Now, it doesn't always absolutely make your stomach go away. There's no way of making just your stomach go away and nothing else. Everything kind of goes. So the issue with that is you want to make sure that you're not losing muscle along with your weight loss. But the other is you have to accept the fact that maybe it won't go away. Especially those of us who've had children. There are people who, when we have babies, sometimes we just get a stomach and it's never going away. And it's the privilege we have of being reminded that we gave life to the world. And sometimes that's just has to be, I wouldn't say just enough. That has to be what we celebrate. Not so much what we look like, but the why. And the why our body is the way it is because we brought life into the world. And I celebrate that. Yolanda says, hello, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Yolanda, and thanks for all of the information. Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Marcia, that is very hard to go away. I know it is very difficult. When you say hard to go away, I don't know if you're talking about belly fat or if you're talking about leaving me this evening. But so but I can tell you that I will be talking a lot more about hormonal information. I know I've done some videos in the past. I've done some lives in the past. I'm going to be regurgitating some of that information because it's never too much. You know, hearing it over and over again is not going to be too much. So, um, but oh, Casey listening from Alabama. Well, actually, it's not even replay. You're just catching me live. However, you're probably going to have to go back. Okay, yeah, belly fat is very hard to go away. And the reason is because the underlying cause is hard to address. Stress is the number one reason why most of us have belly fat. Cortisol is the number one reason why we have belly fat. Low hormones are another reason why we have belly fat. And childbirth is a reason why we have belly fat. Can't get rid of our children. Don't want to go back and do that. And the others have to be addressed directly. I mean, it has to be daily, cortisol reduction, hormone replacement. Also, if you're not a candidate for hormone replacement, then unfortunately that's not an option. And then, really what it boils down to is that our body changes as we get older, and we have to accept it and just embrace it. And that's really what we can do, especially if everything else is fine. Your numbers look good, you feel good, your energy levels are fine. Just love yourself. I mean, it doesn't have to be a problem. It really doesn't. And so I know that's not always the answer people want to hear, but we got here through a process, and unless we reverse that process, there's really not a lot we can do. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. It's our first of 2025, and I'll be here next Tuesday at 6 p.m. live. And I hope you'll join me. And like I said, share this with other family, share it with friends. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like. And children are a joy, so I guess we can embrace the fat for their sake. I agree. And especially if you have daughters, it's really important that our daughters see us loving ourselves so that they learn body positivity and how to love themselves, so they're not constantly self-criticizing when it comes to how they look. We get enough of that from the world. We don't need it at home, and definitely not from our parents. So that's really important. So may we get the link here, and that the link for what? Now, I put in the link for the priority patient. There it is again. So if you want to get signed up with a physician to help with weight care, you can. If you're in a state that I'm licensed, then maybe I can help. Otherwise, there are other doctors who are very happy and willing to help you. And if you go to youtube.com/@Dr. you can find me in all my videos. So subscribe there, follow me there. And then that way you won't miss any of my Tuesday lives, because I do stream live into that group. And I also respond to the comments that are made. So if you want to get in contact with me, that's another way. All right. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And I will see you again next week at the Dr. Toomer Talk Show right here.